Look, I mean, my hope for America is what it's always been. I think it's the hope I hope we all share. We want it to continue to be the place where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where you're not limited by the circumstances of your birth, by the color of your skin, by your ethnicity, but frankly, it's a place where you are able to overcome challenges and achieve your full potential. I think that should be the goal of every country in the world, frankly, but I think in the U.S., we're not perfect. Our history is not one of perfection, but it's still better than anybody else's history, and ours is a story of perpetual improvement. Each generation has left the next generation of Americans freer, more prosperous, safer, and that is our goal as well. But it is a unique and exceptional country, and as we come upon this 250-year anniversary, I think we have a lot to learn and be proud of in our history. It is one of perpetual and continuous improvement, where each generation has done its part to bring us closer to fulfilling the vision that the founders of this country had upon its founding.
You know why I like Marco Rubio so much and why it was such a smart move for President Trump to pick him as Secretary of State? It's because he was asked a question about that at a press briefing at the podium. He just said that because he believes it. It's not something that is memorized or prepared.
It's not written down.
No, he just believes that there is a hope for America because he believes in this country. He's the type of guy you want to have as your Secretary of State. Let's get Steve Cortes on here to talk about his thoughts on America 250 as it is approaching. President Trump is taking it very seriously. And we are here too. Steve, can you hear us okay?
I can. Hi there, Annie.
Good to talk to you once again, and good to have you on the show with us. You know, I was just kind of saying in the first segment of our show here that it really, if you only consumed news headlines and politics, depending on which side of the aisle you get it from, you could really hate this country right now. And looking around, it's like this is the lottery to win the opportunity to be an American, to be born into this country. If you become a citizen, there's so much good here. It doesn't get talked about enough.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, look, I think gratitude among all the human attributes, the most important probably is to be grateful. And we should be incredibly grateful, all of us, that we are Americans. For those of us who are Christians, we should be incredibly grateful that we can practice our faith in a land that allows us to practice our faith, where the faith has flourished for centuries. Now, to be clear-eyed about everything, there are very real problems. And unfortunately, there's a real patriotism gap right now that is very partisan. And that's very unfortunate, right? I mean, this shows in all of the polling, some of the polling that I've done myself, as well as a lot of publicly available polling out there, that Republicans generally and conservatives are very proud of America, very grateful to live here, less so for independents, and then not at all for Democrats, right, who largely denigrate this country. That didn't used to be the case. I don't think that was the case at our 200th anniversary, our bicentennial back in 1976. But unfortunately, that is the reality right now. But nevertheless, I don't think that any of us should despair, those of us who do love America and who do believe in patriotism and want to pass that on to our children and to future generations. Instead of despairing, let's do everything we can to convince and persuade those independents and those reasonable Democrats who are still out there that this is an amazing country, that we should be proud of it. We should love it dearly. We should be grateful that we live here.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Cortes speaking with us right now. And I think that the partisanship of patriotism is unfortunate. It's you see a pickup truck driving through town, at least here in southern Illinois, and you kind of feel like maybe that is part of MAGA country, maybe not so much up north. But if you are looking at an American flag and you're assuming that that's a symbol of a political party, there's a big problem with that. Now, I'm looking at, a lot of economic markers. We've got a jobs report that came out today that is incredible. And one of those rare, at least during the Biden years, there was a revision of months past, but the revision made the numbers even better than they were when they were initially reported. I mean, yes, we've got a conflict in Iran, but there are a lot of things that are looking up because of smart policy.
Yeah. Annie, no, listen, I agree. I think it's a very good thing that in 2025 was the first year in 60 years that net immigration to the United States went down. In other words, more migrants actually left than came into the United States. I believe one of the reasons that we do not nationally embrace the kind of patriotism that we used to is because there's simply too many migrants in this country, and we haven't been very careful about which migrants we accept into the United States. So far too much illegal migration. And of course, in that case, there's really no filters over who's coming in. But then even on the legal side, it's been almost entirely chain migration that is family-based rather than using smart filters like people who have skills, people who love our country, people who embrace our values, embrace Western civilization, and are going to come here and be additive to society. But we have the largest number of foreigners that we've ever had in the United States, both in raw numeric terms, but also in percentage terms. We're actually higher now than the highest levels of the Ellis Island days. And we're not demanding assimilation like we were in those days. We're demanding that you will be American, you will believe in our culture, you'll speak English, your children will only be instructed in English at school. Those factors don't exist today. And so we've become a lot more multicultural, and I don't say that as a good thing. I think that's a bad thing that has led to diminished patriotism in this country. However, recognizing all those challenges and issues for our country, as I said, under President Trump's leadership, we're starting to see immigration constrained, the illegal side massively constrained, and even the legal side starting to be restricted in I think, a very smart way. To me, the quickest, best way for us to get back to a place of broadly held patriotism throughout American society is to take a pause on immigration. Let's assimilate the legal immigrants we have here now. Let's focus as a country on really promoting and almost evangelizing. I mean, you have to take almost a religious view of patriotism because it doesn't just happen. It's not just natural necessarily. There has to be rituals, and it has to be taught in schools, taught in houses, taught in churches, right? To young people that, hey, here's why you should be grateful. Here's what's important about our country. And here's what makes it great and how you can contribute to making it even greater still. That doesn't just happen like gravity. It has to happen intentionally. And I think we can do it. I do. And one thing I'm very enthused about is that Gen Z young men are actually very patriotic. Not so much the young ladies, unfortunately. We've got a lot of work to do there. But men in their teens and 20s actually are really conservative generally, are pretty religious, and thankfully, much more patriotic than young men used to be. So that gives me hope, Annie. I think that's a good reason, a tangible reason to be hopeful for the future.
I think it's a wonderful point. Steve Cortes speaking with us. You can follow him on X at Cortes Steve. When I think of the phrase like talking about, are you proud to be an American? If I'm talking to my kids, I've got 4 kids, Steve. The oldest is 16. The youngest is 4, soon to be 5. So that could mean something very different to all of them. The older 2 kids that I have, they ask a lot of questions. And when I talk about being proud to be American, and I partner it with what Secretary Rubio said there from the podium that we played when he did the press briefing, that you can be proud to be American without some sort of, guaranteed understanding that we've never had a problem in our history. That actually the struggles that we've had in our American history, if they're told without how we've overcome them and what the lengths with which we've been willing to go to honestly go where no country had gone before, to shed our own blood over, the great sin of slavery that was imported into this country and so many other things that the left, they only tell the first half of the story. And the sickest part about it, at least those voices that are leading in the Democrat Party, the sickest part is they only tell the beginning of the story so that they can politically benefit from it, so they can gain power and money over it. They know the whole story, but they refuse to say it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Annie. And yes, when it comes to acknowledging the many problems in American history, the many stains, frankly, on American history, well, welcome to humanity. Okay, that's life in a fallen world. No institution on this earth is perfect, will ever be perfect, and certainly not the United States. However, the trajectory, which I think is what you're talking about, the trajectory has been very, very positive, right? And it has been really the culmination of Western civilization and something that we inherited from Europe, which was made better here, frankly, and something that Europe has largely abandoned now, very tragically. And so it's really up to the United States, I believe, almost solely to be the country to advance and protect Western civilization and all of those values. But on the whole, you're exactly right. The record of American history has been continually striving toward and mostly reaching those ideals. And it's very important that we talk about that while we also acknowledge the problems. And you make a great point about slavery. Yes, slavery was clearly a brutal stain upon all of human history, by the way, practiced all over the globe by all peoples of all races. Unfortunately, and including here in the United States. But what the United States can then rightly boast about is when you look at the human cost that was paid by the North to end slavery, to smash it. I once wrote an article about this, and I did the math. I believe if you were to equate it to today's U.S. population, the losses in the North are something in the order of 6 million people dying. It's definitely into the millions. Ooh. I mean, so think about that. I mean, think of, for example, the war on terror, which was awful, and America paid a steep price, both financially and in terms of loss of human life. I think we lost something like 7,000 people, though, total in Afghanistan and Iraq. Awful, okay, but nothing compared to what happened during the Civil War, where again, it's definitely into the millions, and I think it's something like it would be the equivalent of the United States losing 6 million people in a war. That's the kind of cost that we were willing to pay to smash slavery. So you're exactly correct. Every time kids are taught about slavery in school, which of course they should be, they should also be taught about, and look what the Union did, right? Yes. Look what these brave soldiers did. Look what Abraham Lincoln did. That needs to be taught alongside it.
Steve, before we let you go, I want to bring in a current event story. The Southern Poverty Law Center apparently couldn't find enough racism and hate in action that they were like, let's go buy some. Let's manufacture it. We'll put it out there and then we'll monetize it. And boy, were they successful in monetizing their manufactured hate. I think this goes hand in hand with what we're talking about right now, because the hate, the division, the victim culture that the left has championed, really, in essence, to try to destroy the idea of the American existence, the American life, American pride. Even if you said that would potentially feel even racist or hate-based if you say American pride in some circles. Now we find out that those activists who are also funding people, government, funding structures, labeling Turning Point USA as a hate group, that the actual hate group participant was the Southern Poverty Law Center. Is what they're fighting against, at least publicly, all of that hate that they say exists, that they need you to donate so that they can fight against it? How much of that hate actually exists in our culture?
Right. Well, thankfully, extremely little, right? And that's the reality, because if there were a natural supply of hate, the SPLC wouldn't have had to gin it up, organize it, finance it, right? And pay really very lavishly. For example, to get specific, the Charlottesville riot, which led to the entire Fine People hoax, right? The myth that Donald Trump praised bigots when in fact the opposite was true. But that underlying event, we now know, was staged and organized. And the SPLC paid $300,000 to just one guy, to one scumbag racist that they were willing to find. We don't know how much of that money he then doled out to other people to participate. But the point is, the entire thing was staged, and it was staged with a whole lot of donor money. That's significant money for anybody. And for a scumbag like this guy, that's probably more money than he made the rest of his life in entirety. But the reality is the supply of hate in society, thankfully, is very, very low. The demand from the left for hate, though, is very high. And so what did they do? They concocted hate where it didn't exist so they could then claim that they're the heroes to fight it. I mean, it would be like the fire department deliberately setting fires, firemen acting as arsonists, and then showing up on the scene to put out the very fire that they stoked themselves. It's reprehensible. It's criminal. It's good that the organization has been indicted. We need some actual people indicted too, though, and I believe that's coming next. It seems like the DOJ is very methodically pursuing this. We need people in handcuffs. We need people to go to prison. What they did was diabolical. It was illegal. And I think all of us on the right now should rightly be skeptical about anything we see that just doesn't seem quite right. Yeah. Right? If the event seems almost too good for the left to be true, well, perhaps it's not true. Perhaps it's not accurate. Perhaps it's being staged by them. So let's be smart about that too.
Steve Cortes, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. We hope you'll come back soon. I think that there's a lot to be celebrated. I think the America First message is hopeful. As you pointed out, those young men seem to see that, and that's the hope for the future for the country right now. And you're a great part of that. So thanks for being with us on a Friday afternoon.
Thank you, Annie. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.